We have opened 2 of the 3 doors in Mycorrhiza so far. Now let us open up the 3rd door and see what horrors await here. With eyes and a cat, Mycorrhiza, Distorted Mind Comics. And pets. We do indeed love our pets, although I think these ones are a little bit more horrifying in these cases. Oh, we've experienced that wasteland so far. Oh, I shot awake, panting heavily, my clothes sticking to my skin due to all the sweat. My eyes darted around the room, but everything was quiet. I seemed to be safe. A nightmare. Seems like I just had a nightmare, as always is of the previous experience that we have witnessed. I was at some hospital. There were other people who were. I couldn't remember, but it must have been terrifying. The pulsing pain in my head slowly subsided. I took a deep breath and kept mumbling to myself that it had all been a dream. Nothing more. After coming down, I decided to take another look around the house. The fact that no one was here, even though the lights were on, was still nagging at the back of my mind. Because who put the lights on in the first place? But I was more confident that I'd be able to find out now that it was daytime. I left the bedroom to retry the doors just in case. They were still locked. Surprise. I just wanted to go home and take a shower. Perhaps we could find a shower here, for goodness sakes. I smelled my clothes and they did indeed had started to smell slightly sour. This place seemed to have nothing left to offer. I'd be better off out in the streets now that it was daytime. If it wasn't missing my wallet, sorry, then I would be getting something to eat as well. But alas, and I'm starving. I left the house for the bright sunlight. The back street didn't seem so bad anymore. I found it to be rather cozy and quaint. I made my way down the path until I heard the faint sound of conversation in the distance. A weight lifted from my heart when I first glimpsed people walking around in a pedestrian area. There weren't many of them, and as I looked around I got the feeling that this was a rather small town. Trees and flowers were planted at regular intervals, which gave it more of a rural atmosphere. It didn't matter. I could finally ask for help. "Excuse me, could you tell me where I am?" The woman blinked at my approach. She frowned and scowled in my general direction. "What do you mean you don't know where you are?" "This is Kijam. She looked uncomfortable talking to me, so I thanked her and let her be. Kijam. I've never heard of a town with that name. Where... how did I end up here? That was also the name of the cruise ship we was on. The thought of being somewhere I don't recognize scare me. There's no greater fear than the unknown. How was I supposed to get back home if I didn't have the slightest idea where to go? I need a map of sorts, like a town map. I took a deep breath to calm myself down. My next best bet would be asking someone to allow me to make a call from their mobile phone. I approached an older man in a business suit. "Excuse me, may I use your phone? I'm a bit lost and would like to call a friend of mine so he can pick me up." His lips curled into a grimacing frown. Sorry, I'm a bit of a hurry." "Then why was you pulling a grimacing frown?" I approached person after person, but I had no luck. No one wanted to lend an unkempt, half-dressed stranger their phone. I mean, I don't blame them, for goodness sakes. Half-dressed stranger. As I made my way through a side street, I overheard 2 elderly women. "I heard of some violent incidences lately. Most got away with just a flesh wound, saying that they were attacked by someone or something." Yeah, I heard that too. I wonder if it has anything to do with the pet disappearances. I heard of another cat that hadn't come back in several days. I was so focused on the conversation that I almost ran into a girl who looks almost too familiar. We saw her out in the streets, we saw her on a cruise ship, and now we see her back here. There seems to be a common theme throughout all of these doors, that this girl is intrinsically linked throughout all of these. I mumbled an apology until I realised that she had approached me on purpose. Hi. Hi. You need to call someone, right? She extended her hand and offered me her phone. How did you know? I've seen you asking people for one. Yeah, observational learning. She nervously shuffled her feet and glanced away. Thank you. I won't take long. I took her phone. It was a red flip phone with a small panda hanging from a strap. The top bar read May's phone. Her background was set to a picture of herself in a pedestrian area. That place in the picture looks oddly familiar, but I was likely just imagining it. No, you're not imagining it. You were definitely there before. I brushed that thought aside and dialed a friend's number, but the call didn't go through. I tried again, but the result was the same. Again and again and again. Maybe their phone was turned off? I tried my parents' house phone, then my job's front desk, then my boss's personal cell. Each time the call failed. It's like we're in a different dimension where these phone numbers don't exist. I was sure that I had the right numbers. Maybe the phone had a bad connection? It seems like the calls won't connect for some reason. Have you run out of credit? Maybe you have more luck trying a landline. My phone does act up sometimes. You might be right. Still, thank you. I didn't want to hold her up any longer, so I gave her the phone back. After a rushed farewell, I wandered off. I wanted to quickly look for another way to get in contact with someone I knew. It occurred to me that I should have asked her for directions to a police station. I turned to look for her, but she had already vanished, just like the other times. As I made my way through town, I could definitely feel the tension in the air. She was right. Everyone was on edge. While I was passing by an alleyway, something caught my eye. Yeah, the lightness and the sound effects give me the vibes that something horrific is going to be horrific in the near future. Add 2 dim sums for 1 something each. I just caught that between where the no smoking sign is on the left. They were too big to be rats. I couldn't really make anything out other than their eerie glowing eyes. That is, definitely big glowing eyes. Maybe it was a cat gang searching the trash for food. But for goodness sakes, how big are the cats if their eyes are that big? Apropos food, I was starving. But I couldn't possibly ask random people to feed me. And since my wallet was missing, I didn't have any money on me to buy something. Well, there's fish there, it looks like. Though, there were oddly tempting looking plants growing nearby. Okay, they're not plants, but they look like fish. Buds fixed on thick stems were sticking out of the ground. Don't tell me I'm the only one who thought that looks like a fish. Each plant was surrounded by a number of small mushrooms. As I stared at them, I felt a pull. Their strange appearance hypnotized me, and without me noticing, my feet inched closer and closer. This is a trap. And closer. I will obviously eat them, and my vision will not get hallucinated. Oh, what? Okay, my mouse is just automatically drawn to eat them, but what if I don't? Oh my god, there's some kind of... I broke away from the oh, it was literally trying to make me go towards it. So it's more likely that you would eat them. I broke away from the hypnotic pull of the plants. What was I thinking? It didn't matter how hungry I was, they may be poisonous. but my hunger was beginning to gnaw at my insides. My vision grew blurry, even though we didn't eat the hallucinogenic plants. Who knew how long it had been since I had eaten? Suddenly I collapsed and the world around me... What, that soon? We didn't even get to see the pets part. Oh, there we go. It was dark when I awoke, because when we usually collapse, that's the end of that chapter's... Well, that door's chapter. It seemed like no one had bothered to help me. I tried to get up, but I couldn't. My whole body was paralyzed from hunger. Something was shuffling by my ear. I felt the sniffing of an animal, perhaps one of those cats I saw earlier. I couldn't bring myself to look. It lost interest and walked past me towards the plants. I heard more follow. As they padded into view, I noticed that something was off about them. It must have been in my mind, well, my mind playing tricks on me. My hunger was overwhelming. Something about their bodies were wrong. They started to eat the plants. They were smacking rather loudly and made unnatural fleshy sounds. Every now and then one would pause and give off a loud growl that didn't at all sound like a cat's. It was more like a slightly higher pitched bear growl. After a while the sounds diminished and I felt their presence vanish. I gathered my strength and forced myself to my feet despite being paralyzed of strength thanks to malnutrition. What just happened? What were those creatures? The violent crimes I had heard about earlier popped into my mind. My hands began to shake. What would have happened if I hadn't been paralyzed and they had noticed that I was still alive? I took a cautious look around. Most house lights were still lit. I mustn't have been out for long. Once again, my body gave off a deep growl. It was like a bear growl. It's almost as if my stomach was eating itself. I had to get some food or else I was in danger of collapsing again. We're going to take a look around. No one would open their door for a disheveled stranger. Instead of wasting my time going from house to house, I should take another look around town. I should be able to find a police station eventually. I mean, if I walk around eventually, I'll be able to find something that resembles a police station. I picked a random direction, headed off. But I soon realized that finding a police station proved to be more difficult than expected. The streets were completely empty, meaning I couldn't ask anyone for directions. And the further I went, the more abandoned the apartment buildings looked. Did I wander into a deserted part of town by accident? The street looked oddly familiar though, like if we'd seen it before. As I wandered through the dark alleyways, an odd feeling started to well up within me. It felt as if I was being watched. Same here. I took a look around. My eyes scanned the buildings, which were being barely illuminated by the dim street lights. I spotted something at the entrance of an alleyway. It looked like a small figure. Don't approach the cat. Whatever it was too dark to make out. You could at least see the shadow of it. My eyes were probably just playing tricks on me. It must have been a garbage can or something. Right? Yeah, because garbage cans usually move around on their own free will. I tried to rationalize why I'd seen and continued at a faster pace. Was I overreacting? There was one way to find out. I made a sharp turn away from the main street and abruptly stopped. If someone really was following me, then I would be able to ambush them as they enter this alleyway. Yes, because you can ambush somebody with just yourself and not two people. I realized too late that they would have the advantage if they had a weapon with them. Someone was there. I braced myself. Oh, it's a boy. Lanny? Right as they were about to turn into the alleyway, I jumped out, fists raised. The person gave me a shriek and stumbled backwards, falling onto the floor. Just as I was about to question them why they were following me, I realized they weren't a threat. The person who had followed me was a small boy. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with fear. Why were you following me? I slowly unclenched my fists. I need help for my sister. Your sister? He seemed to realize I wasn't planning to hurt him and slowly got up. Yeah, she's hurt. I was only following you to see if you were one of them. One of them? I had a ton of questions, but if his sister was in danger, then my first priority should be helping her. Exactly, we can ask questions later. Alright, show me where your sister is. His face brightened and he led me back down the way I had just come from. Now that he knew that I wasn't trying to hurt him, he became quite talkative. I'm Lanny, by the way. My sister's name is Amy. We're currently hiding from the pets in one of the abandoned houses. Have you seen one yet? They're really scary. I had about a dozen of them near me, but I was silent as the night and as unconscious as, well, a dead person. His words were flowing out like a waterfall. As he made a short pause to breathe, I quickly intersected. What pets are you talking about? And what did you mean when you said I wasn't one of them? You really don't know? Well, I don't really know how to explain it. He seemed to be deep in thought. But before he could elaborate, we have already arrived. Amy is here. We were standing in front of an old abandoned house. Several of the windows were broken. One of them was partially boarded up with wooden planks. Well, is this a zombie apocalypse? Lanny stopped in the entryway. I was about to ask him where we were waiting for when he started whistling quietly. I suppose as an indication to let Amy know that he is nearby. Or to let the beasts know that we're here and we're ready to be devoured for Lanny's own underground labyrinth of cults. Oh, that was a bit of a stretch. It was a slow and somber melody that reverberated through the empty halls of the building. The atmosphere it created sent shivers down my spine. And then it was over. Lanny stopped into the hallway and I followed quickly behind him. Seeing how stumped I was, he explained. It's something Amy and me agreed on. Like, if she hears someone come in, she's supposed to run away unless I whistle this melody. How I thought it was an indicator. Because it's a very unique sound that only one would know if they have rehearsed it. I came up with it today. Pretty good, eh? The melody, I mean. The plan was alright, I guess, but it was Amy's. We made our way inside, walked up the stairs, and stopped in front of a dark room. Not far from the entrance I could make out a shadowy figure sitting on the ground. Amy, it's me. I brought someone. Amy perked up as she heard her brother's voice. I quickly stepped inside and was about to rush to her side, but jerked back. Her arms. Oh my gosh. Her arms are what you'd call contorted. In a way. Very, very contorted. What do we do about this? What happened? I had whispered it, but it seemed like Amy had heard me nonetheless. I ate a piece of the plants. I'm glad we didn't. Then my arms began to hurt and now... She broke off. So the plant has some kind of transformative features on them. And they somehow take over parts of her body. She broke off. How could eating a piece of a plant have caused this? This didn't make any sense, but I had more urgent things to do at the moment. Does one of you have a telephone? We need to call an ambulance. Lanny looked at me apologetically. There's no one at the hospital. They're all either dead or they're too obsessed with the pets. No one at the hospital. And he had mentioned those pets again. Just what the hell is going on here? Just as I... Oh. It's not just your arms that the plants have overtaken, are they? It was also the mind. Just as I was about to ask, I heard a thumping sound from within the house. Lanny jerked around, fear-stricken. Is it them? Amy's voice was weak. She was about to faint. Her arms must have been causing her a lot of pain. I'll check it out. You two stay here. I tried to sound confident, but my voice shook slightly. After what Lanny had told me, I couldn't help but feel scared. But as the only adult here, I had to be the one to protect them, because their parents were out, obviously. And so I slowly made my way back down the stairs. I'm glad we didn't eat the plants, by the way, otherwise we would have ended up with arms like hers, or worse. Our mind contorted in some similar way. I heard something yet again. It sounded vaguely like a growl. One that was oddly similar to the one I had heard while I was laying in the alleyway. Could it be one of those pets? As I reached the bottom of the stairs, I could vaguely make out some slight movement further down the hall. It was as if something was sniffing the air. I looked around to see if I could use anything as a weapon. There was indeed a wooden board lying on the ground near a window next to me. I carefully picked up and gripped it tightly while inching closer and closer towards the creature. Weirdly enough, it seemed like it was ignoring me. As I was almost close enough to make out what it looked like, it perked up. I stopped. Time seemed to slow to a halt. A foul feeling slowly spread through my stomach. Because these creatures will always be able to sense your fear. I lifted the board up a bit higher and readied myself to attack. And then it lunged. I closed my eyes and flailed the wooden plank in the general direction of the creature, but only hit empty air. It was over, I thought. I'd missed and now it would kill me. But nothing happened. All I heard was something scurrying up the stairs, oh gosh, towards the children. I opened my eyes and whipped my head around towards the source of the sound, but the creature had already reached the top of the stairs and then I heard a scream. It was Lanny, obviously. I ran upstairs. Amy was still lying in the same spot. It seemed like she had finally fallen unconscious. Oh, next to her was a blood trail leading to another room. Lanny couldn't have been. A sound of breaking bones and fleshy smacking leaked out of the room. I knew what was happening without having to see it. Can we get a silent moment for Lanny? Your sacrifice will not be in vain, even though you are a fabric, or a fabric of our mind. You are part of me, and your death shall not be in vain. I lifted my weapon without even thinking about what was just about to step closer to the room's entryway, but I stopped. There was no way I could fight whatever it was of a rotting wooden plank, and I couldn't save Lanny anymore. It was too late. I needed to get out of here. No, more importantly, I needed to get Amy out of here. There had to be someone out there who could help us. Lanny's words echoed in my head, but he couldn't have been right. The police would do something about this, wouldn't they? Or the military? They're probably too wound up to be able to do anything. I was about to go back towards Amy, but a sudden wave of fatigue came over me. It was as if I had stepped into a veil. The air had gotten heavier and my breathing became more ragged. I clutched my chest as I tried to figure out what was going on. A throbbing pain pulsed through my back. It was as if something had stabbed me. Shouldn't you even be knowing that? I tried to turn around, but I already became too weak. My feet gave in and my vision darkened. I could feel a presence near me. Was it that monster? Before I could find out, my consciousness faded. And that is the pet scenario, although it's a lot shorter than the other two, so I wonder what would happen after all this. Surely these 3 doors aren't just the end point of the game. Surely there's something else to... Ah! Another door. What happens through here? I wonder if the events and choices that we took, and also the order in which we did things in, kind of affects the outcome. How many times does this make now? Never thought his presence would make such a huge difference. I wonder if we're part of some kind of scientific experiments, exploring the human mind. Seems like his use is nearing its end. No need to keep him around, then. I wonder how long it'll take until I find another one. Letting it end like this would be quite boring, though. And he did interact with her quite a lot. Maybe I should do one last experiment. I wonder if her is May. That girl we've interacted with the most amount of time throughout these dreams. And the only one that's appeared in all 3 of them. I'll send him off with a bang. He deserves it for helping me so much. Alright, time to go make preparations. Preparations being... What was... My head felt like it was splitting open. What was I doing? I had seen something. A nightmare? No, it'd been real, hadn't it? The pain was nearly unbearable. Images that seemed to have no relation to each other flashed through my mind. A plant. A dark room full of people. Distorted faces. An ocean. In that order, for some odd reason. I feel like this dialogue could be different depending on the order in which you've seen these things in. So for me, it would be distorted faces, an ocean, a dark room full of people, and then a plant. 2 children, a blood trail, a pack of cats, a knife. Pain. My head felt as if it was about to burst, and then it was over. The pain was gone. I steadied myself. The images I had seen, were they hallucinations? Or were they memories? My mind was all jumbled up. I called out as I left the bedroom, but no one answered. I approached the front door. My hand touched the cold doorknob. For some odd reason it's cold. Sweat starts to form on my arm. Was I afraid? Or what? I swallowed hard. My hand finally moved and I turned the doorknob. As I stepped outside, I noticed that everything looked normal. Everything does. My breathing slowed. I didn't notice how tense my body had become. I stepped into a narrow alleyway that seemed to be leading into a busier part of the town. It was bustling with life. Something about the people walking by was off, but it was hard to put a finger on it. I was too far away. I decided to avoid the main street for now and instead went the other direction. My instincts told me that that was the right thing to do. Right as I turned into another alleyway, I saw something from the corner of my eyes. Is it May again? Nope. Had someone just entered one of the buildings? I hadn't turned my head quick enough. This brilliantly white structure seemed out of place amidst the grey houses that were lining the street. As I trotted closer, I noticed that it looked awfully familiar to the lab I had worked in. No, it was the lab. What was it doing here? I stood in front of it for a while, dumbfounded. But there was no mistaking it. This was my lab. The easiest way to make sure was entering it. The interior looked exactly like I remembered it. No one was at the reception, meaning no one to manually open the door. But I fortunately still knew the passcode. Did they change the passcode though? I made my way upstairs and walked towards section M. On the way, I tried to keep my eyes and ears peeled in case one of my colleagues was around. but the place seems to be totally deserted. That wasn't the only thing that was bothering me, though. Everything was oddly clean. I wonder if he's going to walk through all this, and he's going to find a version of himself on a table somewheres. Most people would likely not think that this was something to be concerned about. The problem was that there was no way someone had been able to find the time to tidy up the lab, because it's usually messy. Not only had we lost a big part of our staff, like 99.99% of it, meaning the protagonist is the only one left, no one was in the right mood to bother with keeping things clean. As I was contemplating what this might mean, I finally reached my destination, my office. The door was slightly ajar. No, it's an invitation for us to go inside. Did someone break in? I cautiously opened it. The room was empty. My desk was gone. My file cabinets were gone. And even the wallpaper was gone. What happened here? The only thing present was a single sheet of paper in the middle of the room. I hesitantly walked towards it. The door behind me suddenly slammed shut, and I jerked around. Was it the wind, or did someone slam it shut? But there was no door. I stood there in disbelief. Then I slowly turned around and looked back at the sheet of paper on the ground. My hands began to shake. The closer I got to the piece of paper, the worse their trembling became. I hesitantly let my eyes wander over the red writing. I knew it. The protagonist was a part of the experiments of this company, in which the protagonist is a part of said company. Now, one thing that was clear by the unknown individual that was looking for something like May, because I think they were interested in the protagonist's interactions with May. Thank you for participating in my experiments. Okay, so two versions of her. Nicely done, but that was very, very, very good. Game design, writing, audio, video, compositioning, and animation, stuff like that. Programming, kinetic text, manga page. It's not a long visual novel. For visual novels and how they usually go on for like 5, 6, 7, 8, upwards to like hundreds of hours if you're like a Clannad player, or someone who's experienced a full game of Clannad. That's like stupidly on. But this is a short visual novel, but short does not necessarily mean that it's bad. In fact, I thoroughly loved the visuals of this game the most. Like the visuals and the sound effects. Why is the same person in there twice? The visuals that emanate from the game is fantastic. It always keeps you on edge whenever the sound effects either drop completely or they emit some kind of ominous sound. And the black and white really amplifies it, because it's like it's a really, really unknown territory that you've walked into. Because stuff with colour, congratulations on finishing Mycorrhiza. I sincerely hope that you've enjoyed the experience, both me, obviously, and hopefully you have as a viewer as well. But also you as a viewer, I'm going to give you a question now. Have you purchased this game for yourselves? Because showcasing a game also means that if you go down to the description, you'll be able to see where I was able to purchase / download the game for myself, so that you know where to find it, and for yourself to purchase this wonderful game. Before you are sent to the title screen, there are a few things that you should know. 1. On the title screen, you'll notice a new menu called Extra. In said menu, you will also have the option to replay the intro and outro. 2. We have done our best to make Mycorrhiza as bug-free, typo-free, and enjoyable as possible. Yeah, there wasn't really any kind of typos in there that kind of was sticking out, or any bugs for that matter. Usually the worst kind of bug in a game is one that crashed the game, and no crashes at all, and enjoyable as possible, although there is no such thing as a bug-free game. But you might still encounter some bugs or have suggestions on how to improve the game. If you do, then please don't hesitate to fill out our feedback form. That's in grey. We can click on it and suggest some feedback. What if I opened up a new tab on Google Chrome actually? You can also find the form on our Itch.io page. Number 3. Feel free to check out our devlogs from behind the scenes information. There's also a link to the free soundtrack on the Itch.io page. If anything new Mycorrhiza related happens, you hear about it on our Twitter, which is easily findable through the Itch.io page and also by clicking on that link when you get to this point in the game. Feel free to tweet at us if you create anything Mycorrhiza related, like Let's Plays, yes, or fan art. You can also find the social media links of many team members on Mycorrhiza's Itch.io page. If you have any questions regarding Mycorrhiza, you can contact the team, the game designer. For example, on Twitter, that's a link, or per my website, that website. Once again, thank you so much for sticking with us on this journey and have fun with discovering the extras. So we are here and we have opened all 3 of the doors. Let's look on extras actually to see what is going on here. Ooh. It's going to give us like, I shot awake, panting heavily, my clothes sticking to my skin due to all the sweat. Okay, danced around, nightmare. Remember any more? Horrifying, chills, just a nightmare, nothing more. Looked around the house. Fact that no one was here, even though the lights were on. Nagging back in mind. Confident, daytime, and left the bedroom to retry the doors just in case. But when I passed by the front door, I noticed a sheet of paper was on tape to it. The handwriting was very crude, but I was able to make out what it said. No escape. Had someone been here while I was asleep? And what do they mean with no escape? I tugged on the door, it didn't budge. I tugged again and again and again, each time with increasing force. You know, there are some windows that you could perfectly be able to smash open. There's even a chair there with a pillow. Not with a pillow provided, but a chair would be able to smash a window. It didn't move an inch. Was I actually trapped in here? I quickly moved to the nearest window to try to open it. But I couldn't, just like with the door, this window didn't budge. It was as if it was painted on the wall. The same was true for the other windows. In my desperation, I picked up a chair. Okay, this was my suggestion. But nothing happened. It even caused a visible scratch. What kind of glass is this? This is like some kind of fortified, bulletproof, explosive-proof glass. This was madness. Had someone locked me in on purpose? How could I escape? I quickly went from door to door and tried to open them, and to my surprise, one opened. Did I not check every door properly yesterday, or did the person who was here before I woke up open it? This room looks like a study, a very small and empty study. The only noticeable objects were a desk and a computer. The desk had 4 drawers. Peeking at someone's private possessions didn't suit well with me. But this wasn't the time to think about that. I needed to find a way to escape. I tugged on one of the drawers. Closed. There were keyholes in the front of the drawers. I took another look below the desk and behind the computer, but there was nothing of note. This also meant that there was no phone here I could use to call for help. But if this computer was connected to the internet, then I might be able to contact a colleague or friend. When I put a hand into my pockets out of habit, I felt something metallic brush my hand. A key? My pockets had been empty the day before. I pulled out what was inside and realized I was holding a small key that I didn't recognize. My puzzled look wandered through the drawers. We shall look in the... You know what, we'll do drawers first and then the computer last. The key didn't fit. Drawer 2. I slid the key in and it fit. I actually somehow had this drawer's key. Inside the drawer was an unassuming USB drive. I put it into one of the computer's USB slots. Drawer number 3. The key didn't fit. Drawer number 4. I was about to open the drawer when I realized there was no handle. Checking the sides and underside didn't uncover any hidden switches or keyholes. There's no way to open it without breaking it down bit by bit, which would take forever without proper tools. But this drawer might contain a way for me to escape. A spare house key, for example. I decided to work on dismantling the drawer while I wasn't investigating the rest of the room. You can't open the 4th drawer in this... You can't open the 4th drawer in this version of the game? What are you talking about? I thought this was a full game that I paid for. Go back to bed, computer. I switched the computer on and was greeted to a simplistic interface. Simplistic interface. Welcome, Maria, to Windows. Okay, so we've got 2 folders here, 2 of which are hidden. Let's see, some text. Hints to finding the keys, part 1. Every door has 1 key. The first door is the easiest. The third door is the hardest. For the third door, the order is important. View the next page if you're still having difficulties finding them. Well, it didn't say that the 4th one was... If the 3rd one was locked because it's not in this version. Let's see. Open the journal. Find a book at the last... Find a book at the last moment. Learn about their mother and give her the food. What kind of stuff is this? Okay, so we're going to exit out of that. Let's see. There's an image here of all the things that we've encountered throughout the game. So that was the fun fair. Then this was the funny face. Then there was another funny face. Guess what? Another funny face. And this one too, another funny face. This was also a funny face. And that one. There's so many funny faces here. Let's see. There are generally 3 methods to reach the pinnacle of face comedy: distortion, removal, and addition. We'll start with the easiest one, distortion. Distortion is a simple but not well-refined technique, so I wouldn't recommend trying it for too long. Still, good fundamentals provide a basis for improvement, meaning you, my dear reader and dear viewer, should keep paying attention. The easiest way to distort one's face features is with the fingers. For example, you could pull up your eyelids or tug the corners of your mouth, giving you a strange appearance. Any amateur could do that, though using tools is far more complex. But also sounds rather painful too, not to mention more permanent. Everyone will love it, especially if you shift the tool's places around. Okay, personally I recommend using staples or tape to make distortions more long-term. Other interesting tools are strings and pins, putting a pin through an eyelid, or check to fix something in place when the rest of the page is covered in red stains. Okay, next let's discuss removal. This is an intricate, highly involved process. You can completely excise parts of your face to look funnier or scarier, and maybe even charm your crush or scare them away. To do this, you will need scissors, a big sharp knife, a handsaw or bone saw, and or a rotatory saw. Caution, messy. Thanks. It's usually best to have an assistant too. Removal is a difficult process by oneself, and maybe your buddy needs help as well. Just remember that laughter is the best medicine. The laughs you receive from this, the essence of true facial comedy, will make the pain more than bearable. First, Make a small incision on the left side of your nose and the rest of the description is dredged in blood. Finally arrive at addition like removal. This is a very risky technique, reserved only for the cream of the crop. It may sound simple though. All you have to do is add and never stop. Search for features that are disgrace to facial humour. Then take them for yourself and pair them off. The person might even thank you for your help with removal. There are some important things to keep in mind, though first and foremost, never steal from a fellow comedian. Second, don't damage anyone's face while on the hunt for parts because you might ruin your additions. Third, be sure to keep unused parts frozen so that it can be used later. Damn. You might want to start with just one person, but variety is the spice of life. You can add all sorts of facial features to yourself like emojis and look like either a real freak show or a defic model. Beauty is only skin. The remaining pages are covered in blood and assorted fleshy chunks, leaving completely unreadable. Nice! Now the first one. Entry 1. The news talked about a new epidemic that's broken out, but refused to give any info other than the disease sends you into a coma-like state. So did the protagonist fall into this coma-like state from this disease? But then the organization kind of got an opportunity from it in order to study on this person. They just told us to stay in our homes. There's talk of a contamination zone or a quarantine too. Damn, that sounds too familiar from 2020 onwards. One of the neighbours, except with a contamination zone, one of the neighbours said they'll stop people from leaving the area even by force if necessary. No going in. Sorry, no going in, no going out. My sister, who was assigned to a team researching the sickness, also told me that she'll be away from home until the situation is resolved. I feel so alone and hopeless. I wonder if Amy and Larry were also employees at the lab, but ones who experimented on us are just adult versions of them. This has been going on for way longer than I'd expected. My sister still hasn't come home since she left. I know she has to work day and night to help everyone, but I just can't help missing her. We've been through so much since we left home. I heard that some of my neighbours have the disease too. I really hope they find a cure. Develop a cure. Also, I started having weird dreams lately. I always find myself in a town that I hadn't seen before. So like the one the protagonist witnessed. My neighbours are all there, but are perfectly healthy. It's pretty normal in its own, but it's the exact same town every time. It's like I really am walking the streets and seeing the sights there. Things are always lucid, to an extent. Time just progresses in strange ways. Like hours pass by in a matter of minutes. Kind of like reading through a visual novel, because that kind of thing happens. Sometimes even days, or months, or years. You go from one scene to the next and time transpires by so quickly. And I don't even notice. I must be having these dreams because of all the stress. Entry 3. My sister suddenly came home. I was really happy at first, but she seemed different. When I asked her what was bothering her, she said she got fired. And wanted to tell me why. I just let it go. I told her about my weird dreams too, but she barely listened. Too preoccupied by being fired. Maybe I can do something to cheer her up. My sister left yesterday night, but didn't tell me where she was going or what she was doing. But she came back with this weird device, which she said is pretending whether someone has... is apparently the name they gave the sickness. Okay, the sleepies. I let her use it on me. Apparently I got infected somehow, but I think that was probably the case. Most of our neighbours are in comas, and I saw some of the ones who aren't just yesterday. I guess it couldn't be helped. She asked if I'd let her inspect me. I was hesitant, but she talked me into it. Okay. Entry 5. My sister told me something weird today. Apparently I should already be in a coma, but I don't feel any different than usual. This led her to think that maybe somehow my body can fight the disease. She told me to stay put and not tell anyone unless she was absolutely sure. When I asked why I couldn't go to the research facility and let them have a look, she got really defensive. She said they might hurt me. I'll let her test her theories for 2 more days. After that, I'll see if someone else can find anything. Or is this the entries of the protagonists in the real world before they were comatose and researched on, quote unquote? Entry 6. I don't know what happened to my sister. We've all been so close. She's my best friend, but she's just not the same person anymore. I tried to leave today because her 2 days are up, but she protested. Things got physical and she overpowered me. She locked me in my room and screamed about how it's for your own good and they'll kill you. I wish I was strong enough to break free. When she calmed down, she told me that there's something in our bodies preventing the sickness from developing. But she didn't specify what, though. She even said she infected herself to test that theory. That made me cry. First because I thought she was insane, then because I was glad she's okay. I had another weird dream today. I was in that town again, but I met my sister there. Wait, May's the sister? We talked, and she said she has been having the same dream ever since she infected herself. As soon as we were up, she stormed into my room and started asking questions. She said it might be because of ZOZ, or Z0C, trying to say that. Try to say that 10 times over. But that doesn't make any sense. I just want this to end soon so things can go back to normal. Entry 8. Since yesterday, I've been hearing weird noises outside my room every now and then. My sister keeps saying that everything's fine and that I'm just imagining things, but I'm scared. Sometimes just a random shuffling, but sometimes it sounds like muffled screams. What are you doing out there? Okay, it's Mary. The name of her sister was Mary, but probably in our distorted comatose-like state, we couldn't remember the R, so that person's name was May, not Mary. Press play. Oh, it's the soundtrack, that's why. Hidden file. I wonder why these are locked. Must be either version gated or something else. I'd already taken the USB out of a drawer. Nothing else in there. Can we not expect the USB? There was an option for us to plug it. Oh, maybe maybe something I had actually initiated was because of the USB being put in. Finding keys. First door is the easiest, third door is hardest. Every door has one key. I know that. Obtain the journal. Find the book at the last moment. For some odd reason, only at the last moment. So it's a treasure hunt within a game sort of thing. But I'm not too sure how to go about this conundrum. The key didn't fit. The key didn't fit. And this one, there's no handle because you can't open the fourth drawer in this version of the game. Yeah, we'll go back to bed. There's nothing else that could help me at the moment. Maybe I should lie back down and take a nap. Someone would find me eventually, right? There's no way I'll be stuck here forever, right? So I think that's going to wrap up my playthrough of Mycorrhiza. As I mentioned at the beginning of this Let's Play, and throughout the game as well, there's a link down in the description below where you'll be able to purchase the game for yourselves and be able to explore the wonderful, morbid, horrific, and enigmatic natures that are the different environments that you can see within the game. But I'm not getting the references because I've not looked at the inspirations behind this game myself, and I imagine those who have already read, what were they called? Yes, Junji Ito Masaaki Nakayama. So it sounds pretty Japanese, if you ask me. So this has been a roller coaster of the game. I've thoroughly loved the visuals and the sound effects mostly, although the story is a little bit enigmatic in its own ways, and I think it's purposely enigmatic so that you can draw your own conclusions from these kind of tales. Like all of these doors, the 3 doors and the final door, they all have their own theming behind it, but when it comes to the story, this is probably a rough guess from me, and please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong about this, but this is all about the lab in which the protagonist works in somehow falling unconscious because they were infected with the disease somehow, and I think the company eventually finds them. That's probably what you discover when you unlock more of the drawers within the extra sections, that you find out more of the story. But the company finds out that one of their own employees has it, but are immune to the comatose-like state in which that is in, but then somehow it manages to exploit that factor and make them comatose, either through brute force or through medicinal means. And they're somehow able to explore the mind of somebody who is in a comatose state that is not in direct influence of the ZOZ disease, which would enable a person to go through a comatose-like state to explore their minds, because I think the condition in order to explore the mind of somebody within this universe of Mycorrhiza is if that person does not suffer through being in a comatose state because of the disease itself, but because of an external reason, but outside of the disease itself. And for some odd reason, this company wanted to explore the protagonist's sister in some way, because the person in question mentioned about the interactions with her, and it couldn't be Amy because we didn't interact with Amy throughout all of her dreams. Like, I think it was the Funny Faces one, which is the only one which we did not talk with Lanny or Amy throughout the game. So I think this is all some kind of horrific experiment, and within that comatose state they managed to inject some kind of scientific thing within the protagonist, which enables them to see these horrific imaginations and landscapes that are purposely there to trigger some kind of biological reaction out of the protagonist, so that the scientists at the lab can then gather data because of that. Like, or it may even just well be the protagonist's own experiences that have caused these sort of things. Like, lucid dreams are a very, very morbid and weird state of being, because you can do and freely do anything that you so well desire, but it depends on your state of mind, because sometimes your mind can conjure up these kind of morbid imaginations and weird landscapes, and they may not be directly impacted by your life in some ways, but the psychological implication of said thing is of a similar or the same result sort of thing. So, for example, if you open a packet of crisps, that could also implicate as like an explosion, because open a packet of crisps has a like pop sound. But what could also have that kind of pop sound? Well, pop could also be a quieter version of an explosion. An explosion could be triggered, like, let's say, with a grenade or a rocket launcher, for example. Or just a crash. Like, that kind of sound could be copy and pasted into something that is of a different physical entity. And then from there, it can then trigger that kind of same psychological reaction. But this could just all be hocus pocus of what I talked about, and it has nothing to do with the story of the game, but it's just a very generalistic overview of the game. Like, you could have lots of different games, but then you could all encompass them into one kind of theory, and then it's like, well, it's just a dream of sorts, and it's like, it's nothing really big, but at the same time it is really big. Like, this game has a lot of big, but also a lot of small aspects that really makes it very much worthwhile. So thank you all so much for watching. This has been my playthrough of Mycorrhiza. Please, by all means, purchase this game, download the game, play it, and give the developer some feedback, because this game is worth the $12 that it is on the itch.io page right now, because I don't think there are many other visual novels out there that come close to this kind of quality and intricacy with its design. I'm not saying that visual novels that don't have this kind of detail are bad, but this is one that sticks out to me to be a very impressive and very intricately well designed visual novel. When I say one game is good, it does not mean I'm saying another game is bad. I'm just looking at this game and not looking at any other game that I've played. So thank you so much for watching, people. This has been Mycorrhiza, and we shall see each other's in whatever experience will be next. If there is a later version of this game introduced and that fourth locker is able to be opened by some means, and you would like me to dive into this game again and try and open all of the extras, then please let me know. But I do wonder why 2 of the 4 folders were hidden in some ways, or unable to be opened. There's like the second one and the fourth one I couldn't open. Thank you so much for watching, and take care of yourselves.